If you've ever given your whole life to family only to be pushed out of your own home, this story is for you. What happens next is my line in the sand, the night I took my keys, my dignity, and my future back. If you want more fierce second chances and no-nonsense justice, keep reading and share this with someone who needs the courage to say enough. I'm Eleanor Ellie Parker, 72, a widow who spent 3 decades turning a dirt lot into a warm house where my boys could grow up safe and proud. I poured concrete with my late husband Jack when the contractor fell through, learned to hang drywall from YouTube, and paid off the last shingle with overtime ironing. Daniel, my firstborn, used to call this place Mom's Miracle. Michael, my younger one, still drops by every Sunday with grocery store flowers and a joke that makes my coffee spit back into the cup. 2 years ago, Daniel met Samantha Sam at a corporate mixer. She's polished, mid-30s, decisive, the kind who walks into a room and moves the air. I wanted to love her, I still want to, but from the first dinner she looked at my little living room like it needed a demolition permit. Open concept would really help, she said, already pushing the couch with her knee. I pretended not to notice, plated the roast, and made space in my heart. They married fast. I gave them my emergency fund, $3,000 I'd saved in case my knees or the water heater gave out, because a mother's love is a forever mortgage. When they asked to stay just for a while, to save for a down payment, I said yes. That yes turned into a series of small, sharp no's I kept swallowing, my lace curtains replaced with eucalyptus green, my framed photos moved to a hallway gallery, my kitchen reorganized so the pots I use every day required a step stool and a prayer. It was never the paint or the placement, it was permission. It was the quiet assumption that the life I built was a draft, and she was here to deliver the final copy. Michael saw it. He'd swing by with a smile, clock Sam's tone, clock Daniel's silence, and change the subject to my tomato vines. Daniel, once my back porch confidant, became a man who checked Sam's face before answering me. He stopped lingering after dinner, stopped noticing when the grocery bags were heavy, stopped meeting my eyes. The day Sam moved my garden, I snapped, softly, politely, still, the mother who apologizes to the furniture when I bump it. 15 years, I'd coaxed sunlight onto each plant, rotating pots like a waltz. She'd clustered them into a far corner because a cafe table would liven the space for guests. I asked her not to move my things without asking. She squared her jaw. Ellie, it's our house now too. The words lived in the air like smoke. I turned to Daniel for the fan, for the window open, for any breath of the sun who knew the shape of my sacrifices. He stood, newspaper in hand, and barked, "Don't argue with my wife in her house." Her house. I'd expected a paper cut. I got an amputation. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't rehearse my resume of sacrifices. I went to my room, gave myself one good cry into Jack's old t-shirt, and set my alarm for dawn. The next afternoon, when their Friday date night swallowed them and the porch light clicked off, I called a locksmith. He was 60-ish, kind enough not to question my shaking hands. I paid him cash. Then I called Michael. "You finally did it," he said, fierce and gentle. Good. At 1 a.m., headlights brushed the living room. Keys fumbled. Voices rose. Knuckles pounded the door that still holds the pencil marks where I measured 2 boys who used to make me read the ruler twice just to confirm they'd grown. "Mom, open up." Daniel tried please, then police, then this is illegal. I lay in bed and let the tears come again, grief tears, not regret tears. The deed is in my name, I reminded myself. So is my peace. They left for a motel. Saturday came with the rare luxury of quiet, my coffee, my chair, my sunlight on the floorboards I'd sanded by hand. At 10, Daniel called from a friend's couch. "We need clothes and documents," he said, voice thin. "We'll talk after you apologize," I said. "After you respect me." He balked. I told him, "Come alone." Sam could come when she was ready to apologize to me, by name, for specific things. He said that was impossible. I said, "Then it's your choice." Calls multiplied. Guilt tried to stage a coup. I put guilt in time out. By Sunday, he appeared alone on the porch like a little boy who'd broken a window and wanted to borrow forgiveness. I kept the chain on. "Are you here to apologize for yelling at me in my house?" I asked the door. Long silence. "Yes, Mom." I unlatched the chain. We sat like the old days, him in Jack's chair, me across with my hands folded. He said the locks were too much. I reminded him what too much sounded like in my kitchen. He said Sam didn't mean it, that I'm sensitive, that things change. I told him love isn't a hall pass for disrespect. "You can live here," I said, "but my rules aren't hate, they're boundaries." He paced. He pleaded. He asked for keys. I said no. I said he could always come home, but only him, for now, until respect was not an argument, but a habit. He left tight-lipped, called later tight-throated, asked me to co-sign an apartment, to loan a deposit, to be the soft landing again. I said I'd been the soft landing long enough to become their trampoline. "You both earn paychecks," I told him. "Solve your married problems like married people." He called it pride. I called it finally learning to stand up in the house I built. He hung up on a sigh that sounded a little like growing up. On Monday, his office called. He'd missed a shift. I worried. Found out he'd chosen a bar over a desk. He sobbed on the phone, a sound I recognized from skinned knees and stomach flu. "If I choose her, I lose you. If I choose you, I lose her," he said. "No," I told him, "choose respect. Then neither of us asks you to choose again." On Tuesday, my doorbell rang. A woman in a green sheath dress, blonde bob, expensive sunglasses. Sam's sister stepped inside bearing the kind of smile that only works on people who doubt their own worth. She tried reverence, she tried logic, she tried cheap threats. "Do you want your son on the street?" "My son has a job," I said. "He has hands and friends and options. What he doesn't have is the right to make me a stranger in my own kitchen." She left in a huff powerful enough to rattle the mail slot. I put on a kettle and told the tea kettle we'd done fine. By dusk, the phone rang again. Sam. Her voice was all edges sanded down. "Mrs. Parker," she said, "what specifically do you need to hear from me?" Not, "I'm sorry you feel that way," not misunderstandings. I told her, "Name what you did, name how it hurt. Don't apologize to win, apologize to mean it." She paused so long I thought the call dropped, then said slowly, "That telling me to leave my home was wrong. Touching my things without asking was wrong. Treating me as less than was wrong." She said the quiet part out loud. She wanted Daniel back in a stable bed and me back in his life, both. She asked to come by, alone. At 5, she arrived with grocery store roses and no makeup, like a woman in the aftermath of herself. I didn't make her stand. I led her to the same chair where she'd once told me my curtains were dated. She didn't look around. She looked at me. "I grew up learning to swing first," she said. "My family made love a sport and I came into yours with pads up. I thought you'd try to keep Daniel, so I tried to claim the house." She met my eyes. I was wrong. We talked about fear, about the women we've had to be, about how the mind invents enemies when the heart is afraid to be second. She cried. Real tears, not performative ones, I've learned to tell. When she knelt and took my hands, I made her stand, because no woman in this home bows to another woman again. "Show me with actions," I said. "Ask before moving. Help without being asked. If we disagree, we talk. No triangulating, Daniel. And if it fails, no third chances." She nodded. "Tonight?" she whispered. "Could we come home tonight?" I said yes, but told her to fetch Daniel and return together. I put on a fresh pot, laid out cookies, tidied the hallway, practiced the rules in my head until they felt less like weapons and more like vows. An hour later, they stood in the doorway, smaller than I remembered them. Daniel smelled like fatigue and apology. He said, "Mom," like a prayer. We cried in each other's arms, then sat. He apologized without qualifiers. She apologized in front of him, naming every disrespect and asking for none in return. I believed them, not because words are magic, but because they were ready to live them out. Then I laid my terms on the coffee table like silverware. This is my house. Decisions are consulted, final calls are mine. No more moving, painting, purchasing, or optimizing without asking. If we disagree, we speak face to face and never through Daniel. Daniel does not ever raise his voice at me again, not to defend, not to deflect. And we all do our part to make this roof a refuge. Chores, costs, courtesies. And the most important, I said, voice steady, this second chance is the last chance. They agreed. We ate simple pasta, all of us stirring sauce and stories. We watched a sitcom rerun and laughed in the same places for the first time in forever. Before bed, Daniel hugged me long. You taught me to build things, he said. I forgot that includes boundaries. Sam thanked me for the kind of home where mistakes aren't terminal if repentance is real. I went to bed with a light chest and a firm spine. I'd kept both my son and my self-respect. I slept. For the first time in months, I slept like my name was on the deed and my voice was in the walls. The months that followed weren't a montage of instant harmony. They were a calendar of small choices that proved the apology had arms and legs. Sam learned how sunlight works in my kitchen and asked before relocating the sugar bowl. She started leaving post-it notes that said, ran dishwasher, watered fern, don't forget to eat, in handwriting shy enough to make me smile at the page. She made space for my photos back in the living room and asked me to tell the story behind each frame. The one of Daniel with a gap-toothed grin. He'd lost that tooth on my broom handle, turning sweeping into swordplay. The one of Michael with a stormy face. He'd spilled a milkshake and accused gravity. Daniel began to look like himself again, punctual, shaved, a man with a laugh that didn't apologize for existing. He stopped defending Sam by attacking me and started defending our home by building rituals. A Thursday movie, a Saturday morning grocery run, a Sunday casserole you could set your watch by. When tensions flared, and they did because kitchens are small and opinions are large, he kept his voice even. Sam kept hers even. I kept mine even. I learned to say, let's pause and try again, and mean it. One evening, I found Sam standing by the door, coat in hand, eyes wet, but spine straight. If I mess this up, she said, I'll be the one to pack the bags without drama. I believed her. Not because she was threatening to leave, but because she was promising not to weaponize staying. A week later, I caught her in the garden, crouched beside my oldest geranium as if listening for confession. Show me where you want her, she said, hands cupped. I pointed to the spot with the best morning sun. She settled the roots with the care of someone who finally understood that plants and people don't thrive when shoved for aesthetics. Michael noticed. He arrived with a lopsided grin and 3 coffees. New vibe around here, he said. He and Sam actually laughed together, and not the polite chuckle you make in a hallway. Real mirth, the kind that knows a reconciliation is not a reversal, but a remaking. He told Daniel quietly in the 3-second language of brothers, You good? Daniel nodded. They clinked coffee lids like kids with Capri Suns. I wasn't naive. I kept my boundaries warmed up, ready. When Sam asked about repainting the kitchen, I said, let's sit and plan, and we did. Budget, timeline, my veto power on any color called moss, fog, or sage. She picked a soft cream that made the morning light feel like a compliment. When Daniel invited Sam's friends over, he checked with me first about numbers and noise and, miracle of miracles, he listened when I said, 9 o'clock is a fine time for laughter to turn into goodbye hugs. 3 months in, a test, Sam's sister in green came back, eyebrows already in the shape of an argument. She started in with a tone I recognized from the first visit. Before I could open my mouth, Sam opened hers. Not here, she told her sister. Not to Ellie. The sister sputtered. Sam walked her outside. Door closed. The house didn't just feel mine, it felt ours. Ours in the kind of way that honors the deed and the dinner table with equal gravity. Work steadied Daniel enough that his boss took him aside to say, Good to have you back. He came home grinning, dropped his keys in the dish and said, Turns out showing up is still a superpower. I told him dignity looks handsome on him. It fit him better than the suits he used to buy on credit. 6 months in, the garden bloomed like it knew a secret. I was deadheading roses when Sam joined me with a question. "How did you do it?" I asked. What it meant. "Hold the line," she said. "Change our lives without losing our family." I told her, "There's a difference between punishment and consequence." I didn't lock the door to make them suffer. I locked it to stop suffering. Boundaries don't say, "I don't love you." They say, "I love you and me." I also told her something else. I was terrified. The night I changed the locks, I shook so hard I thought my bones might rattle loose. I worried I was making a mistake I couldn't undo. I worried Daniel would choose silence and absence over humility and return. But fear isn't a compass, it's a siren. You acknowledge it, then you steer toward your values anyway. That night, after the kitchen was cleaned and the sitcom credits rolled, Daniel lingered in the doorway like he did when he was 12 and trying to decide whether to ask for extra dessert. "Mom," he said, "can I say something awkward?" I braced. "I picked Sam because she's strong," he said. I realized I needed to be strong, too strong enough to tell the truth when the truth doesn't flatter me. "I'm sorry I didn't defend you sooner." He swallowed. "Thank you for not rescuing me." I told him, rescue is short, respect is durable. Respect looked like Sam slipping grocery money into the family envelope without being asked. Respect looked like Daniel replacing the porch bulb before I noticed it was out. Respect looked like me texting them both before rearranging the hall tree because, yes, the rules go all directions. Respect looked like laughter coming back, not as decoration, but as proof. A year to the day after the her house moment, we hosted a small dinner. Michael, a couple of neighbors who had kept my porch light company with quiet waves during the hard weeks, and Daniel's boss, who turned out to be a kind man with too many pens in his pocket. We ate roasted chicken the way Jack used to like it. At the end, Sam stood up, tapped her glass, and said, "I want to toast the woman who taught me that home isn't square footage, it's standards." Everyone clapped. I pretended to fan my face. Inside, I was fanning a flame that felt both brand new and older than the good wood under our feet. Later, when the dishwasher hummed and the house exhaled that end-of-evening peace, Sam brought me a folded piece of paper. "In case it matters," she said. It was a note she'd written to herself, the rules, in her handwriting, with a box checked next to each one. At the bottom, she'd added, "Make Ellie proud." I told her I already was. Sometimes I still think about that Friday. The locksmith's van, the clicks that promised a new story. People like to call it revenge, but that word tastes too bitter for what actually happened. I didn't get even, I got whole. I didn't win against them, I won back myself. When Sam asked me months later what mattered most, I told her the truth, my dignity. "Because if I lose it, you can't give it back to me, only I can." She nodded, eyes soft. "Then we'll protect it together." So we do. Every morning with coffee in the mug that fits my hand just right. Every evening when laughter finds the same corner of the ceiling. Every time Daniel calls this place home and means it the way he did at 5 and the way he'll mean it at 50. Every day the house I built proves it was always strong enough to hold us if we were willing to be strong enough to deserve it. And every time I pass the garden table, the one Sam wanted near the sun, I sit for a minute and let the light make a promise on the floorboards that respect, once planted, blooms every season if you water it with truth. If this story hit home, if you're reclaiming your peace, your keys, or your voice tap share, leave a note about your moment of courage and follow for the next tale of boundary-built happy endings.